We made it. We made it on. Oh, it must have been the Batman here, the pretty fly Batman. How you doing,
Pretty
pretty
fly
fly?
for a bat guy. I was auditioning for the Batman. I'm still waiting
I
for a
could see.
callback. Still
I
waiting for
could
my
see.
callback. So
So we had some technical difficulties. Mostly it was my difficulty because I kept sending the wrong link to Pretty Fly. So
that's
I
how.
had set up one with all this great material to play and to show, and it was the wrong link. So we're gonna have to like go without all the special like pictures and stuff like that. Anyway, but I'm
Look,
gonna move my
even
camera a little
Jurassic
bit.
Park had a hiccup. All right,
Oh,
Jurassic Park
geez.
had a minor hiccup. So
Yeah, right. So let's see who we got here that joined us tonight. So we have the great Matt Woods. How you
yeah,
doing? And we have the Tina,
the
the
lovely
OG for
milady.
another channel, not for this one, but that's okay. Okay, who else we have? We have Paul Psychedelic. How you doing? And let's see anybody else that we have here that's new. Matt, Tina, Psychedelic, but they're having a big conversation here about Batman. All right, Chris Bigger is here. Yes, the man. How you doing?
Well.
How you doing?
Is there a
So,
reason why I can't see the chat on my end? From my
um,
end?
yeah, probably
Or
because
never.
you're not an official, you know.
What?
So,
I'm the co-host.
what you got to do is you have to open up. You have your iPad there. Just
No,
open
I'm
up
on
the
my laptop.
iPad and go on
Oh,
to
okay,
that. You
it's all
know,
right.
I didn't think of that. I'm sorry. I could put you in, but usually I have Climbing Comics as my official like backup person on that. So anyway, I hope that some people here have seen the Batman that are in the chat. We've all seen it just once. Okay, Brian has joined. Hey, Brian, how you doing? We've both seen it once, but we have like our memories are we have total recall. So that means that our discussion about the Batman is going to be just so superb and really online.
It's
So we're
pure.
going to start out with some stuff that may not be spoilerific, but we probably will be getting into some spoiler stuff too as we go along. But we hope to not make it too spoilery. Does that make sense? Is there such a word
Yeah.
as that?
Now, Joe, are we
Yeah.
recording? Can you just make sure we're recording?
Yeah, we're live. We're live.
Okay,
You guys can hear us,
recording.
right?
Okay, because
All right.
remember
Listen,
last
don't be a
time.
wise guy, you know.
Now this is gonna be the best review show, so I want to make sure that it's all recorded for future
For
viewers.
posterity? Yeah, okay. All
Yeah.
right. But now you've taken off your cowl, so we all know who your secret identity is. So that's it. So now people know.
Spoilers. I'm Batman.
Anyway, so all right, let's start off just generally, all right, Pretty Fly. So what are you kind of what was like just your initial impression of the movie? So you're watching the movie, right? And we'll talk about the length of it a little bit, but you're watching the movie, all right? As you're going through the movie, what are you feeling? And at the end, what was like your just your gut feeling, you know, without getting into any real particulars, I think. What do you think?
The first 10 minutes of the show got me because the narration.
Right?
It's like I'm reading a post-crisis, post-Frank Miller miniseries Batman. Because those narrations are only really window to Batman. Because he doesn't talk a lot. He's too busy roughing people up.
That's right. That's one thing in the movie too that struck me was that I mean, I think I could have played Batman in that one because I do have the muscles and everything because there wasn't a lot to say, right?
No padding needed.
He was not, I mean, he didn't say much during that except in the beginning. You're right. There was a narration from him in the beginning that kind of set it up. It was almost like one of those, you know, kind of squares on a comic book
Yep.
page,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where you got the pictures and you've got the writer just putting down what's kind of going on and what's going through the mind of the individual that you're watching. So you're right. It was kind of, you know, comic booky in that respect.
Right. Back in the O'Neill days, there were like, thought bubbles, which I actually don't see thought bubbles anymore, do we? In modern comics?
Not so much.
I don't
Not
think
so
so.
much.
But I do wish that they did it throughout the movie. They kind of
Mhm.
just bookended the narration. I just wish they kept it going throughout. Well, not throughout the movie, but sprinkled it here and there.
Right, right. So it got
What
you at
about
the
you?
beginning. So as you went through it, you know, were did like the good feeling build as you went through it, and how was it at the end? What was your impression at the end?
Well, now it sucked. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I'm a Batman fan, so they gave me everything I wanted. It's like the most Batman movie ever. You know, I'm still a Batfleck fan, but this is the most Batman, the Batmaniest Batman movie ever. You could put
Mhm.
that on the poster, all right, as my review. Uh, but yeah, I mean, we barely saw Bruce Wayne, you
That's right.
know, and then the imagery, still goes back to comics. Like, I don't want to be too geeky about the cinematography, but um, even there were a lot of close-ups, like you see in comic panels,
Right.
you know, even like when Catwoman's turning the dial on the safe, Batman's eyes, they're all close-ups, as if like, oh, let's piece the puzzles. Like literally with the framing, we're piecing the puzzles of the movie.
There's a big surprise here. Chris Bigger thinks it was a very well made Batman movie. That's a big surprise.
It's not a surprise. It's not a
Well,
surprise.
well, let me tell you my impression there. Again, the beginning was really good. It kind of set the mood, kind of the dark mood. His voice. Incidentally, I do know that although other Batman whatever really changed their voice, and I think Affleck actually used some sort of mechanical voice changer.
Hmm.
Um, Patterson didn't, and his voice was kind of that low gravelly voice, but it wasn't overly done. It was. I thought it
I,
was
I
good.
think I
You
think
know,
Christian Bale scared him from doing an actual.
that's right.
Where's the
That's right.
trigger?
That's right. But for me, the interesting thing about this is that I don't think it was really a superhero movie. See, my impression. I know there's a lot of the Marvel guys on this thing right now, but my impression would
Good thing
be
I'm
that
not seeing the
people
chat.
that really, people that really like, the Marvel type of movie,
Hmm.
if they're expecting that from this Batman movie, they're going to be really disappointed because it's not that type of movie. As a matter of fact, I kind of saw it as almost being a horror serial killer, kind of it's kind of patterned after the Zodiac killer in some
Sure.
ways.
Yeah.
But I saw that as
In
being kind of a
scary
murder,
ways.
yeah, like multiple murder type of mystery thing. And you really have the Batman here. I know it's year two, but he's kind of perfecting his kind of greatest detective skills in this type of thing. So it was almost like a murder mystery horror movie that kind of Batman was part of,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a Batman movie where Batman's doing all this super type of stuff and all that. He was doing a lot of sleuthing, I think, and teaming up with
Isn't that
then
why?
Lieutenant
Isn't that why we
Gordon.
like Batman?
Yeah, yeah. So to me, that was kind of my impression when I walked out of it. I said, this is different.
Mhm.
This is really, really different. And I think that Matt Woods, right?
And and I think that lends to why there's the other side of the coin where people like fans like us love it and other fans don't, because it's not like your typical superhero movie that we're accustomed to.
Right,
There
right.
there
So
was barely
so
any action in the movie, you know.
well, there was some good.
There
There
was
was a
some
lot of, how can I call it, intense quiet time, I guess.
there
But
was
there was
there was
also
tension.
a lot of tension. Right, that's a good word for it. A lot of tension. But when he got involved in action, whether he's just beating the crap out of somebody, when he doesn't know how to stop, basically, right? Or some of the other stuff that happens, which we can get into a little bit later on, um,
Mhm.
there was some good action stuff going on. But even when there was,
The car chase.
yeah, well, we'll talk about the car chase because in IMAX that was like an amazing event. That was worth the price of admission, I think. But I think it was more like even when things were going and he had to save people, there was kind of this quiet tension going on where you're really just watching him and you're seeing what's
Mhm.
going on and you're watching the other people react to him. It was really, really interesting in that respect. So anyway, so that's kind of our initial impressions of it. Yeah, Brian says more like a drama. Yeah,
Sure.
it was really kind of almost like a horror mystery
A
police.
serial.
Yeah, right,
It was a
exactly.
TV serial. This would have been a great TV series, like just the way it is.
And let's touch upon that really quick before we get to the other stuff we're going to talk about, because this was like 2 hours and 59 minutes, right? But for me, it passed so quickly. It was like, you know, and I'll go back to the Snyder Cut too, you know, in the terms of the way that worked out. One of the things that I think is important, and this maybe we should have talked about this at the end, but I think since we're talking about it, you know, how our initial feelings were in that, I thought it went quick. And the fact of the matter is that it was a 3-hour movie. It could have been longer. And in my view, the longer movies allow for a lot more development of the story and the characters, you know? And I think a lot of that makes the movie better with respect to it. I mean, even, you know, the Avengers and the last 2 Avengers movies were really like one movie.
Right?
Yeah. So you needed those 4.5 or 5 hours, whatever it was, to really get a good story out.
Sure.
They couldn't do that in 2.5 hours, you know, so they split it into like Infinity War, you know, and Endgame and that type of stuff, so they can have a really good story, because they're not going to have a 5-hour or 6-hour movie, you know. So here, I know there were some deleted scenes, you know, at the end.
We'll get to that later.
The ending, you know, in a little bit, but that ending was actually a much longer piece, and hopefully they'll start to have some of these deleted scenes come out, so you can kind of see what they're about. Okay. So anyway, so that's go ahead.
I was just gonna say, there's really no such thing as too long nor too short. There's just the right amount of time for the movie.
Yeah.
You know, because look how they diced up the Snyder Cut, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
Well, the diced up version felt longer than the 4-hour movie, because the 4-hour movie made sense. Anyway, moving on.
What's this? Matt Woods Comics, no shark repellent. Anyway, so you saw me. I was bringing up something, so I'm going to put that back up now. Let's talk a little bit about the cast, you know, and who was. You know, hold on a second. I got to get this the right way. Here we go. The cast and people that are in there, you know. So we've got the cast here, and these are kind of the major characters with respect to that. So obviously we have Pattinson, who was Batman. We have Zoe Kravitz, who was Catwoman. I got my cameras in front of me, so I can't see that well.
Yeah, we have Paul Dano. Colin Farrell is in this movie?
Now that we're going to talk about in a second. If I could find that other piece. Yeah, so he played the Penguin, right? We have Andy Serkis, who is in other movies I remember like that, but he played Alfred. And that's one thing. Alfred had a pretty small part, and it wasn't the typical Alfred, right?
Nope.
I mean, Bruce was a bad adopted son to him. I mean, he was like calling him out all the time, you know. It was not like this kumbaya, though they did work together well. It wasn't kind of like this father figure thing, which was kind of interesting. Now,
well, the Alfred.
Go ahead.
Since you mentioned Alfred not being Alfred, it's actually the Alfred from this book.
Which one is that?
Earth One by Jeff Johns.
Oh, Earth One.
I mean, I know we have a section about the sources, so we'll expound about that. But
I'm gonna rely on you for most of that. Yeah, that's there. Yeah. So Jeffrey Wright is the fellow who played Lieutenant Gordon, right? And then we have. I got to move my camera, guys. Sorry. So then we have here John Turturro, who played
Falcone.
Falcone, thanks. It was a tough Italian name. I can't remember all those type of things.
Well, I was going to ask you of the Italian descent. Is it Falcone or Falcone, or what's your opinion on that?
Well, if you're talking in American, it's Falcone, but in Italian it's Falcone.
Falcone, yeah, because Nolan went with the Falcone version.
Yeah, nobody says that. Nobody. Well, it's like for me, you know, everybody says Trovato, but my real name is Trovato.
Yeah,
it's much more melodic. Yeah. It's nicer.
Yeah.
But if I tell somebody my name is Joe Trovato, they always say what? You know.
Yeah. Well, my last name's Acuna, but we say Acuna because we couldn't type the
Enya on that. You know.
Yeah, on our form. So
right. So then Peter Sarsgaard, he played DA Coleman.
Yeah, he was the DA in the club.
Coleman,
I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah, Coleman. And then Jamie Lawson was the woman who ran for mayor. I can't remember the character. She played kind of like, you know, she wasn't like in there too much. Yeah.
And I think that's my criticism, if I only had one, about this movie.
Yeah.
But
that you didn't have enough of her in it?
Yeah, because we'll talk about it later. We'll keep it going because the next character is the big one, or the
Yeah, but
next
we're not going
actor.
to say anything about him right now. Barry
Okay.
Keogh played a very important character, but we don't really know who he was technically.
Yeah. Well, just to go back to Jamie Lawson, the
Yeah.
mayor, she was a crucial part of his arc. So I wish there was more of her in the beginning to
Now,
set up
why do
the
you
ending.
say that?
Why do I say that?
Yeah.
Well, because part of the arc of the story is how people are trying to find out, should we trust Batman? Like, who's this freak running around in a mask? It wasn't until she saw the kid, trust Batman. Well, I think we're getting the spoilers now, but anyway, let's just say she was integral to his character arc
Yeah, she
at the
thought
end.
of him as being a vigilante and kept on telling Gordon that he has to go after him. And
Right.
Gordon and Batman had kind of a symbiotic relationship. We'll talk a little bit about that. That's one of my favorite scenes is between Gordon and Batman, which we'll talk about our favorite scenes in a bit. But yeah, so she was against him until the very end.
Yeah.
Where he actually kind of saved her along with this kid and the rest
But
of
I just wish there was more of that in the beginning, the against part.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. So yeah, and how about anybody else here? We'll talk about Pattinson in a bit, but what do you think about Zoe Kravitz? She may be the next the future ex Mrs. Woods, as Matt had indicated.
Can't blame him.
Here. But
can't blame him.
But how do you think she played Catwoman? What do you think about that?
She really dug into that role, because if you notice the way she walked like a cat.
Yeah.
Here, let me show you. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to show you. I'll spare you guys that. Travis.
I can make you big and you can do that.
but she walked like a cat, like during the club scene when she'd walk around, trying to do surveillance for Bruce.
Right.
And she really, I think she's a very comic accurate Catwoman. I mean, just the teasing with Batman, and I know she's always compared to Michelle Pfeiffer, but I think she played it more realistic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I think she played it more realistic. I mean, she's not like giving herself a bath, like like
in Milk,
like in Returns. If you remember that part.
Yeah.
But I think I think she was a really comic accurate Catwoman, or Selina. Are you sure, Matt? Don't knock it. All right, let's see.
They did.
Yes,
they did
chemistry. Thank you.
Yeah,
they had chemistry.
Seem to have, right. They seem to have that chemistry, and one of the most obvious lines that Batman had when he went over to her place during part of the movie was, "Boy, you sure have an awful lot of cats." So it's like, oh wow,
Yeah, Bruce has no game.
No, not at all. That was pretty bad. Pretty bad. And then afterwards, when she's trying to say, once you at the end, at the ending, she's trying to make him go away with him. She says, "Come on, we can rob stuff from all these rich people. Think of it, the bat and the cat. That sounds pretty good."
Yeah, but there were so many scenes like, am I watching Year One? Like there were so many scenes like straight, like the way she looked, like with the short hair, the boots, right?
Right.
It's like, man, it's like straight out of Frank Miller's work.
There she is, Matt Woods.
Yeah,
this is just for you. This is just for you. So yeah, I think she was kind of a comic accurate thing, and I think she did a great job.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that are talking about it saying, is she like the best one now, or is Michelle, Pfeiffer still the best one? They were very different.
Yeah.
And the movie was very different too. So I think she was the perfect Catwoman for this movie, and I'm sure she'll be in the subsequent movies as well. So we'll take a look.
Because Pfeiffer was really dark. Like she was really dark. Like not.
Okay. Well, let's go on to Paul Dano as the Riddler. Now he had like this mask. I'll try to get the picture up. But he had this mask and stuff on this whole time, right? So you get to see him a little bit more at the end. Let's see. I don't think, I may not have it here because I lost a bunch of these pictures, unfortunately. So
well, while you're looking for that,
I don't have it available. But one of the things is that he had this kind of crappy, this kind of crazy type of voice as well that was there,
right?
But the interesting thing about him was that how he played, at least his character, how the character played off different things. And the interesting thing about it was that he was actually fond of Batman, during the movie. So we'll tell people that. I mean, he was fond of Batman. So I think that's kind of interesting. So as the movie goes along, he doesn't see Batman as an adversary, although Batman sees him as a friggin' lunatic, serial murderer. He thinks Batman and him are kind of kumbaya together, right?
Right. I mean, if you think about it, in the story, they both had the same starting point. It's just that one went this way and the other one went that way.
Yeah.
I think that was illustrated well in their entrances, in their during the movie, because when we were introduced to the Riddler, he just stayed in the shadows, right? You remember that scene with the TV?
Yeah.
He just stayed in the shadow until he made his move.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Batman just walked out of the shadow because he is still, a hero, but he just likes to use the shadow, but he didn't stay in the shadow. So I think there was like some sort of like comment between the way, or to compare the two,
Well, yeah, he thought that they were the same, they were the same and going after the same stuff,
Yeah.
He thought, if
He
I'm
thought
going
Batman
after
was
bad guys, you're going after bad guys. We won't give away too much of the story, the storyline, but basically that's what he was thinking until the very end. And there was an interesting ending to the movie as well, which we'll get into,
Yes.
So Colin Farrell, let's see if I can find that picture as we talk about him. So yes, he was in the movie. And the interesting thing about that is, here it is. Hold on a second. All right. So there he is. So when I first saw, the trailer and they had the penguin in there, I didn't know who the hell it was. And then when I read about it, I found out that when he'd spend all these hours, they put this together for him. And when he went out the first time or the first couple of times, other people in the movie didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
They're saying, "Oh, you're the penguin. Who are you?" Because look at that. I mean, does that even look like him? Looks nothing like
this movie. This movie should get an Oscar for makeup.
Oh, yeah.
For the penguin, But you know what? Let me bring this up too. To me, it wasn't just the costume, but the way he hit his accent. Have you ever heard Colin Farrell like in interviews?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like hey. That's what he sounds like.
He's Irish,
but in this,
right? He has kind of that Irish brogue type of accent. Yeah.
Yes, but in this movie, like, hey, take it easy, sweetheart. It's like he really hit his like.
Yeah, he was second in command to Falcone, right? So kind of, and he was kind of still finding his way. That's why I think the second movie is probably going to have him kind of rising up and taking it over. He still had the Iceberg Lounge, right?
Yeah,
from the movie,
actually, the TV show. He's heading a TV show for HBO Max.
That's right. Yeah,
probably
which we were going to comment on, but that's okay. We'll comment on now. Yeah, so he's going to have that HBO Max show that's going to come on about Gotham, and there's also going to be one on Arkham as well.
Yes.
That's going to come out as well. So it doesn't look anything like him. You're exactly right. That was really an amazing, performance, an amazing thing that he did with respect to that.
Yeah.
So
if the next time you watch this, Joe, like he really looked like De Niro. Like keep an eye out for that. Like he looked like Robert De Niro to me. Like
he was like a Scarface, right?
Yeah. Or Untouchables, like.
Or Untouchables, right. So that was basically him, and the car chase scene, which we'll talk about because it's one of my favorite scenes. We can talk about favorite scenes. He was part of it, so he was really good even in the car chase scene, I'd have to say. So it was really, really well done.
I got you.
All right. So we already talked about Alfred a little bit. I mean,
Hmm.
he didn't have a lot of scenes in there, though he had some important ones, I think. And he
Right,
and he
right.
and he still was kind of like the moral consciousness for
Hmm.
Pattinson's Batman. Because
Right, right,
we haven't talked a lot about Batman, but we will. But he really is trying to find himself, and he's just, I mean, he's a scary dude,
right,
and that
right.
was that was really his purpose, right? Pretty fly. I mean,
Hmm.
that's what he wanted to do.
Right,
And
right.
there was a
Vengeance.
scene, there, and so what Alfred is doing there a few times is saying, and you basically got to be, you can't just be Batman like 99% of the time.
Hmm.
You have to develop your other self so that you can, get your head together on this.
Right.
And
Which,
that was most of their interplay, was stuff along those lines.
right,
Plus a very big reveal, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, that Alfred knew and that Bruce did not, which kind of caused some problems until Alfred inadvertently saves Bruce's life.
right,
Inadvertently, I
right,
guess, right? Yeah,
right,
yeah, with respect to that.
right.
So Jeffrey Wright and Lieutenant Gordon, I thought this was a pretty interesting connection
Hmm.
because, again, you're not seeing how Batman was made. Everybody, this is old. This is year 2, so you're not
Yeah.
seeing the alley scene. You're not seeing Joe Chill. You're not seeing any of that type of stuff going on. Although you find out a little bit about what happened later on in the movie, but here you have a Lieutenant Gordon who seems to be the only person either in the Gotham Police Department or
Hmm.
in the mayor's office that thinks that Batman's doing something good for the city. Everybody else
Right,
sees him
right.
as a vigilante, wants to arrest them, wants to, I don't know, kill him, do whatever they want to do with that.
Yeah.
But he was with them, pretty much all along the movie, and my second
Right,
favorite scene is what I'm going to talk about, was between the two of them. So what do you think, Pretty
right.
Fly?
Well, I mean, the way he played it, like he made you feel that they have this like equal relationship with one another, you know? And it's like there's no way Batman could have been in those crime scenes if Gordon wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
it's almost like he's with me, fellas, kind of thing. Because like, and there was like jokes between them, like inside jokes,
Right.
for a movie seemed to, not to be humorous, but there were a lot of jokes between among them,
That's right.
they're very
And-
subtle, and I have to watch the movie again, but they had a joke that made me laugh out loud, but I just can't remember what it was. Maybe
Or
it's the
remember
Jack
that?
and Coke
Remember,
that I'm drinking.
remember when he's correcting the Spanish, that whole
Yeah,
ratalada,
yeah, yeah,
that kind of stuff. And he goes, "Hey, don't you guys know any Spanish here?"
yeah. Right, right, right. Or there was this scene where they were like going through the hallway, and then Gordon took out his gun, and then Batman goes, "No guns." It's like, yeah, and then Gordon goes, "Yeah, that's your thing." Like they have like this little play between them because they have this relationship that we haven't seen in the movie, but we
That's right.
feel
That's right.
between the
Yeah.
actors' portrayals.
And during this whole thing, and there's a website that comes up towards the end, which we'll mention in a few minutes. But the interesting thing about that is that the Penguin is the one that actually translated it correctly, because Batman, they don't know how to translate it. So
Right.
so he translates it as the rat that flies.
Yeah,
And so they're
the
saying,
feminine.
that could be like Falcone, right? Because he has wings. This could be, and I'm sitting there saying, a friggin' bat is a rat that flies, and nobody was saying, oh, it could be Batman.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, but
But
nobody came up with that until like towards the end. Somebody says, "Oh, it could be Batman," and I'm saying that's the
but
first thing that popped into my mind. That was really
yeah,
weird.
but that's easy for us to say because we're the viewers and we're seeing every detail, even the
Yeah,
stuff that we have the superposition over
yeah,
Batman because we're just viewers and we're seeing what Matt Reeves is letting us see, so we're kind of ahead of Batman.
right.
But if you're a Batman, you have a lot of this, like, a lot of red strings, tying everything. So there's a lot of things he's thinking about, so sometimes the simplest thing you overlook because you're so caught up with this, a lot of like webbing, like a lot of connections going
Hey,
through your
Matt,
head.
Matt Woods is my bro. I gotta satisfy his needs sometimes.
All right, I'm not gonna argue with that.
All right. So, John Turturro as Falcone, he was very, I thought he was really good, but he could play these type of guys like the mob boss type of guy pretty
Right, right.
easily. But there were a lot of, I don't know if we should give it away, but there were a lot of surprises come out from him about him.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and we won't talk a lot about that type of stuff, but he's an important character, and it goes back. I mean, and we'll talk about this a little bit. It goes back to some of the comics, his relationship here with Bruce and Batman and that type of stuff.
And Selina.
Yeah, and Selina as well. So there's some interesting stuff there which you can talk about. Now, Peter Sarsgaard, when I first looked, Sarsgaard. I can't read; it's too small on my screen. So I kept saying like, who was he and stuff like that. But then he was.
He was great.
Yeah, he was the DA.
Yeah, the corrupt DA.
Yeah, the corrupt DA, and he has a big scene. You've seen it on the trailer where that car comes crashing into this place where they were having the wake for the dead mayor, and he comes out and he's all strapped up with a bomb, and he's got like an iPhone strapped to his hand.
That was such a tense scene.
Yeah, I know. It was amazing, because he needed Batman to answer the phone. And I don't think I'm giving anything away when I say he did blow up eventually, and that was an important explosion because of what happens later on. With
and that was art imitating life. If you knowing that scene really gave me a lot of like chills because that happened really in the news. But
yeah, that's right. That's right. So they took a lot of stuff from the comic books. They took stuff from the news. Again, it was. I mean, a lot of the stuff that happened there. Obviously, you don't have Batman going around and stuff like that. But a lot of what happened outside of it is not. If you live in like New York City or a big metropolitan area, especially in the 1970s,
right,
was not so unusual, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would catch me in Times Square back in the 70s.
Hey, listen, I lived through Son of Sam too. I was dating during that time.
Yeah.
And we were like, "Oh, you want to go?" Yeah, but we're not going to park anywhere near like any kind of food place or anything like that. We try to drive away from the Queens and the Bronx areas where the guy was shooting people. I mean, all that stuff was going on. So,
I live like 4 miles from the Tate murders. So,
oh God, yeah.
So I have my share in this side of the coast.
Yeah. Okay, well. I think that's pretty good. So, how about locations? Gotham, the Batcave, that type of stuff. You have any comments on that? Any thoughts?
I thought it was interesting that the Batcave was in a train station because to me that's like an easy access. Like it makes sense. Like because in the animated series, he's like his Batcave is in the what do you call it, by the beach side, and he has like this big, rock that would open up. But this is like a made train station. It's an abandoned train station, so it kind of makes sense that he'd use that as the Batcave. So I thought that was a unique take on, especially when like Matt Reeves is still trying to ground this movie. So that I thought that was a brilliant decision to make the Batcave a part of the Wayne subway station.
Right, it was a Wayne subway station that was abandoned. But you know what I thought of right away? Superman the movie, because that's where Lex Luthor had his lair, was in a train.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said, "Oh wow, man! I wonder if it's the same one."
Yeah.
And the Batcave. It was. Right. I mean, you find out that he happened to pawn it, based on just some stuff that happened, but it was very Spartan. He still had the computer. He had his Batmobile in there and things like that, but it was just very Spartan, like cave-like.
Yeah, it was minimal. And I like that aspect because it's all this, Yeah, he had like a little UV light that he'd occasionally wave around to look for, clues. Right. And he had the high-tech contact lenses.
Right.
But that's about it.
Well, that's the thing that was kind of interesting. We didn't get into that, but that as one of his gadgets or something. He had these contact lenses that enabled him to record things. And he gave a pair to Selina at one point in time too. Which was kind of an interesting whole scenario. So he would record things, and then he'd be able to watch them on his computer because it would record them. And the other thing that was kind of interesting about that he had in his bat cave was that journal. You know, you want to talk a little bit about the journal? That's kind of an interesting concept.
Right. What did he?
The Gotham Project.
Yeah, because that's where the narration. That was the source of the narrations in the movie, because he was writing the journal and it said year 2 on it. So yeah, I would like to get a hand of that journal.
Right. So he would record things with this really high tech type of stuff. And I think he said during the movie, if I remember correctly, that he recorded it because he couldn't remember it all and he wanted to put it in his journal because this was basically his, you know, it kind of goes back to the again, we're trying not to do this, but you know, to the what's it called? Oh God, I forget the name of it. Is it the Ghost of the Phantasm?
Mask of the Phantasm?
Mask of the Phantasm, thank you. Kind of goes back to that a little bit, you know. There's so many different that's an animated movie, which I think is one of the best Batman movies, animated or real, that you may want to see, you know. So if you have HBO Max, watch it, you know, because it's just terrific. I've watched it like 2 or 3 times because there's so much.
Smell another review coming up.
It's so much in there, you know, and it's definitely one of the top Batman movies. But the one thing that's interesting about that is he made this promise to his parents, basically, that he was going to fix things, and so nobody has to go through this again. And that's why it's the Gotham Project. You know, his project is to fix up Gotham, and he wrote everything was in there, like a diary that was in there.
He's almost like, you know, someone in a lab trying to come up with a drug to fix some sort of ailment, some sort of disease that is, you know, and he's like jotting down like his, you know, his results of his, you know, his crusade, and like, is this work? Because he even questioned, like, what I'm doing, is it helping?
Yeah.
Like, that was in his journal. I remember that because that plays a role at the end of the movie, you know, which we'll get into. But yeah, that book is a really I like that they included that, because once again we get to get inside Batman's brain, because he doesn't share his feelings that much.
No, he doesn't. And I think Selena was having a little bit of a problem with that during the movie with respect to this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I wouldn't listen to his podcast.
Sounds like a mixtape Batman dropped. Okay, and we saw Arkham for a little bit, but there really wasn't too much of Arkham in there. So I don't know that we can comment. You know, he had the cells and got some wacky people in there. I mean, you see Arkham at the end, which we'll talk about in a few minutes.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
No, there's a big spoiler about Arkham.
Yeah, there is, but we'll hold off on that for a minute, okay?
Yeah.
We'll talk about the story in a bit. You know, and actually, did you want to talk a little bit about the music? You mentioned the music. Actually, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Let me just do this one more time here. So I just did that for you. So that's your entryway into the music. So you wanted to talk about the
no
music?
No pressure. Well, I mean, it feels like I heard this 2 years ago because part of the costume test or the film test, and they released a little clip of the costume, and they were playing the music in the background, and I was like, man, that sounds familiar. It's like, wait, it's a Darth Vader, the Imperial March. It's like, sounds like Darth Vader's like.
It does. You're right. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, but it's very Williams, but he did something funky. Is Dave Bratton in the chat?
I don't see him.
Okay, but anyway, he'll tell you more about the music. But anyway, but what I do like about that theme in particular is because that theme made Batman feel like he's Jaws.
Yeah.
Like doo-dun, doo-dun, right? and I like that approach in the movie because there's an opening montage where it's where people are freaked out every time they see a shadow because they're gonna think anytime Batman will come out, you know. And sometimes the music kind of leads in because in Jaws, what's the first thing we hear before we see Jaws?
Yeah, the music. Yeah.
Doo, 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 dun, 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 right? So I think Matt Reeves and Giacchino, who's the composer, I think if that's what they had in mind, chef's kiss, because it's a really different portrayal because oftentimes we see Batman when the criminal turns around, he's there, like it's like a visual shock. But this one's a tension builder. It builds the tension. Like it's like because what's scarier than hearing weird sounds at night? It's the
Right.
sound that creeps us.
And I think that could bring us right into the next thing we're going to talk about was kind of some parts of the story, that we're talking about. So, in the beginning, and this was one of the trailers. You see some people in a train station, right?
Yeah.
And Batman just one guy comes, who are you? Whatever. And Batman just beats the crap out of him,
Vengeance.
And yeah, and before that, they had a scene where the bat signal goes out, and you have all these people doing kind of these bad things, so put it that way.
Right.
And when they see the bat signal and they stop doing what they're doing and they kind of run inside and go away. And the whole part of it was, this is part of what he was trying to establish over his first 2 years. And what he told people all the time, which kind of comes back and bites him in the ass later on, keeps saying, I'm vengeance,
Right.
And his whole point was, people have to scare me, have to be scared of me.
Right.
And again, that's Mask of the Phantasm, right? But I mean, people have to be afraid of me. And basically, he's succeeding that. And that music plays right into that, Because it's like, uh-oh, is that Batman around? And people were afraid of him, except for that one guy who was a fool and he got the crap beat out of him, with respect.
But that's not unique to this movie because that was there in Dark Knight.
Yeah.
I believe Gordon said like he just puts the light on just so people know that he's out there.
Right.
So I'm paraphrasing. I haven't seen the movie in a while, but what is unique about this is, like I said, the sound. Like in the darkness, you'd hear. That's when the superstitious, cowardly lot that are the criminals know that Batman's coming for sure, because this precedes his footsteps with those heavy boots. I think they even added like Spurs sound effects to it, like to make them, to know that he's really there, So and they're scared because of the sound. Again, the sound of the music just did something wonderful with this portrayal of Batman.
So with the story, I've mentioned it a few times, but I think it's kind of like all the chaos, the crimes going on. It's kind of what was happening in real life, like with the Zodiac killer, as far as I can remember. So it's kind of like that. I mean, all this stuff is going on, and the Riddler is basically killing off these people who he feels, he says, no more lies. You've seen that in the trailers. He keeps saying no more lies because of his history, which we're trying not to tell you the whole thing, but because of his history, he feels that there were a number of people who have been lying all along. And he's right. And with respect to that. And so his feeling is they need to suffer with respect to that, and he knows he's going to get caught at the end. He realizes that. He's just trying to get to the point where everyone that he feels has to pay is dead, and one of them is Bruce Wayne,
right?
Who's the one that he missed,
right?
And there's a big thing at the end about that as well. But the key here, I think, is that again, it's kind of like this murder, horror, police show where Batman is just some sort of a super policeman and a guy who goes out and risks his life to save people that are in trouble. That type of thing. That's kind of my deal on it.
Yeah, like the Riddler actually felt like, because you describing Riddler made me realize how Oliver Queen was in the Arrow show. I don't know if you ever watched the Arrow show. Like in the first season, he was like, he had a list of people he's trying to like just trying to scratch off his list. He would just hunt people that wronged his dad. Yeah, so that kind of reminded me of that. But Batman's arc, can we talk about his arc? Or
Yeah, talk about his arc, and then maybe our favorite scenes, and maybe some scenes we don't like. How about that? Go ahead.
what? You have a scene you don't like? Um, it's funny because like in the even in the trailer, you know, one of the things we know about him when they ask him who he was, he says, "I am vengeance,"
Right.
right? And then watching the movie, you know, after the movie, I was like, wait a minute, because I look for arcs. That's what I look for in movies, whether story arc, character arc. Because
Right.
without an arc, what's the point of watching the movie? If the character doesn't change, it doesn't learn anything, why be on that journey with him, right? So I look for arcs, but then so when I was trying to think of Batman's arc, suddenly it dawned on me, it's pretty much the iconic line from Batman, the animated series. The oh yeah, oh that'd be awesome. Maybe. Um, but anyway, the line I'm referring to, you know, when Kevin Conroy goes, "I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman." Right? Or
That's pretty
Batman.
good. That's
Oh,
pretty
thank
good
you.
imitation
I
there.
kind of worked on it because I have a girl. We read Batman stories at night, so I had to develop a Batman voice. But anyway, so in the first act, right, he's
Yeah.
vengeance. I am vengeance. And then the second act, when he's embracing the night, like so much so that you can't even look at the sun without putting on the shades. So he's the knight. And then the latter half of the second act, he realized I have to be a hero. So he's the knight in shining armor because he was carrying. He knows that I have to be more than vengeance. I have to be, you know, I have to be a knight in shining armor, giving people of Gotham hope. You know, and then at the end, I am Batman.
And yeah,
So
and
that's
that's when
that.
when the Riddler guys, again, we're talking a little bit in circles, but hopefully it whets your appetite. So if you haven't seen it, you'll go see it. But
Yeah,
there's this one scene where the Riddler has some minions, I guess you want to call it,
sure.
that he calls out. And when Batman captures one, he's going, you know, who am I? Who are you? Who are you? And the guy says, I am
I am
vengeance.
vengeance.
And that really kind of stuck on him. Where you just mentioned, Pretty Fly. I've got to be more than that. I've got to be hope as well.
Right. Well, not
You
just
know,
that, but my act of vengeance created these this
that's
Riddler
right.
because I think that's the same person in the beginning, right? He was the same person that he assaulted and said, "I
Oh,
am
you think
vengeance."
so?
I think so because in terms of arc and the drama and the structure, like why wouldn't it be? Because he said, "I am vengeance," you know, because you Batman, you turned me into one of Riddler's minions.
You know, he did look familiar. You might be right.
I
Though I
think
think
so because
after the
why would
beating
it be there?
but after he got that beating at the train station, I'm surprised he's able to walk. I mean, he was getting beat up really bad.
Well, days have gone by. See, people. He took some venom from the streets.
Well,
Spoilers.
let me tell you two scenes that I really loved. All right.
Hmm.
Now, one of them was, and let me see if I could grab that slide here. One of them was the car chase.
Hmm.
All right. I paid a few more shekels, which I suggest to people that can afford it, and saw it in an IMAX theater. You know, with the huge screen, and I mean the tremendous speakers around there. And that car chase was a little bit disjointed. I mean, if you really look for something that would be a normal car chase, this ain't it.
Yeah, yeah.
But but the visuals and the noise and that jet car. I don't know if it's a Camaro or if it's a fire. It looks like a
It looks
Camaro
like a
Firebird
Charger,
or a Charger. It's
I think it's a Charger, right?
one of those cars, right? Thanks.
I'm sure you got
So,
car guys in the Given Gang that would let us know.
but it's just amazing, and that's where the Riddler thought. And this was in one of the trailers too, where the Riddler thought that he had gotten him because this whole trailer had fallen over and it was exploded. He goes, "I
Hmm.
gotcha," and all of a
I
sudden
got
the thing
you.
comes
Yeah.
right through the flames. It was just everything. Ah! That was just amazing. That was just an amazing place. So that's one of my favorites that I
Can I
had
add
there.
something to that scene?
Excuse me?
Can I add something to that scene?
Yes, of course.
What made it brilliant, in my opinion, was like, yeah, that buildup of this beast of a car, and then when he was about to go, what happened?
Yes.
Yeah, it was like it brought me back to my old 1992 Corolla back in college when it would start and then press on the gas and be like,
Right.
Because
Yeah.
this is not your bat god that everything works perfectly
That's
for
right.
him.
That's right.
This is his beginning. He probably even put this card together himself, and that had like Lucius Fox. Hey, you got a tumbler? What is that?
Yeah, they got
Tumbler?
no
All right,
Lucius Fox there. It was basically Alfred and him,
yeah,
like in the garage toying around there, with
yeah.
respect
So
to that.
yes, that makes sense. That it would.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah,
Pretty Fly already figured that one out. Yeah, but
because I'm
all right.
Batman.
So, yeah. So here's the second scene that I really liked. All right, and that was a scene with Gordon and Batman. Now, what happened was when keeping it, is it Coleman, the DA? When the DA explodes, Batman's trying to
Mhm.
save him. When he explodes, remember he has like this kind of partial armor and stuff like that. When it explodes, Batman goes flying about 20 feet,
Right.
and gets basically concussed. He's on the ground, he's out. And when he wakes up, he's in the police station and there's all these cops around him. And he's kind of waking up and he hears someone say, I just want to see who's under the mask. And he like jumps up and starts like going bananas. And they go, hey, arrest him. And start, there's like 20, 30 cops there. So he's kind of stuck in this room. And Gordon is there. Now remember, Gordon and him are the only two. They're kind of like, kumbaya there, right? So Gordon says, stop. He says, let me talk to him alone. I'll get him to surrender. So they go into an adjoining room with glass so everybody could see him. And so Gordon gets close to him and starts just whispering, there's a back exit. You go down the back here. It was like really funny. He goes, do this. And he goes, so then Batman says, yeah, but how can I do that? He goes, you got to hit me. And so he says, okay. And he bashes Gordon down and he runs. And there's a big chase scene. Later on, when they're talking, so that was great. But later on, when they're talking, Gordon tells him, you could have pulled your punch, And what was his answer, Pretty Fly?
I did.
I did. That was great.
That's what I mean. Like they're buddy. They had this buddy relationship. It's not just like, hey, I need you because you need me kind of thing. I think they're really, nobody touches the mask.
I know. That was so funny. That
was
so funny.
Since you brought up that scene, one of my favorite parts of that.
Oh, I'm sorry. You got it?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. You gotta pull his punch. He's Batman. I'm sure he has brass knuckles, Bruno gave him a bat gauntlet with some brass knuckles inside. But anyway, one of my favorite parts of that very scene was when he made his way up to the top of GCPD, and before he jumped off with the squirrel suit, he was scared.
Yeah,
he's never done that before.
That's
he had this like hesitation, and that brought me back to when in Snyder's Man of Steel, Superman's first flight. He failed too. Like he crashed down. Like he kind of made it, and then he crashed down until he had the confidence. So I see the similarities between the two, and it was just when I saw that, I just thought of Man of Steel, which is awesome.
Right. So I mean,
it was his first flight, Batman's first flight.
Right. From my standpoint, I mean, Matt Reeves as a director is really kind of building up this world, Earth 2, right? And so he spent the 3 hours on there. I like I said, that was fine. It passed in a couple of minutes for me. It seemed like it was just a few minutes. I mean, it was really tense. It kept your attention throughout. I had some action, but it was just really this tense, kind of serious movie in some respects, So, but was there anything in the movie you thought that didn't work well?
You go first because I'm thinking right now.
Well, it's kind of hard because I'm kind of a Batman fan too, and when you're a Batman fan, you kind of overlook some stuff and all that. But I just thought the whole kind of Catwoman, Batman thing, it was kind of okay, but it seemed almost rushed to me a little bit. Like their affection part of it was a little bit rushed. I'm not saying that's a bad thing because I think they had to get to that point. But I thought he rushed that a little bit. I thought I liked Gordon a lot. I think Alfred wasn't in here a lot, but that's okay because that's kind of what was going on. And we'll talk about the big reveal a little bit in a second. But um, so that was kind of okay. But I guess Gordon's going to be in the HBO Max TV series, and maybe he's holding back on that. But I think there's a lot that could
Oh,
be
they're all going to
done
be in it. They're
with
all
that.
going to be in it.
He's not, yeah, with the Gordon character, you know. So I thought that was pretty good. You know, and I thought I wanted to see a little bit more of that.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and other than that, I mean, those are the two things that just popped into my mind. Um, Everything
No,
else,
I
I think
will.
there was a lot of setup, you know. You
Yeah.
could see a lot of
They're
setup for
setting
what's
up
going to
for
come
a
next.
bunch of TV shows too.
Yeah,
So they're setting up for that too.
yeah.
I mean, I guess the B storyline with Catwoman kind of was overshadowing the A storyline with the Riddler a little bit,
Yeah.
especially right before the third act. With I'm not gonna. I guess we're not gonna. It's like we almost forgot that there was Riddler for a minute. You know, it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, Riddler. Yeah, because
That's right. Everything.
although there was that scene in the when Batman was infiltrating the Iceberg Lounge in the around the last part, the latter part of the show
Right.
or the movie, you know, with the gun and the all you're only seeing Batman every time there's the flash from the gun. That's the only time you're seeing um, Batman. I thought that was one of the coolest parts of the movie. But yeah, like I think it was a little much with the stuff that was going on with Catwoman because you know yeah, you're worrying about what Riddler's doing at the same time. Batman's now has to put his attention on finding, you know, Catwoman's girlfriend, I guess.
Well, yeah, I guess it
And
was her friends was murdered,
yeah,
and you know Falcone's people did it, and she was trying to figure out who did it and that type of stuff. So there was that
yeah,
undercurrent going there. There was the romance thing going on, and I think there was. I just thought that you're right. I just thought that it kind of it didn't have to be that. They didn't have to spend that much time on it. They could have developed a little bit more of Gordon
yeah,
and the whole Batman thing. I think as well. At least that's my point. If I'm
yeah.
and I know I'm splitting hairs here because I think it was good.
I know.
But I'm trying to
And
find some things that I think could have made it a little bit better, you know, with
but like I
respect to
said
that.
before, I will go back to my previous comment that I think we needed more of the mayor
Yeah,
in the movie, not just at the end or sprinkled during the funeral scene.
yeah,
Because to me, the mayor was supposed to be the the honest mayor, like the incorruptible one, the one that's not a part of Falcone's bank account.
right.
Um, so you know, there should be more of her. So by the time Batman saves her, it's more meaningful because there's more to her presence in the movie than just at the end.
Right. Okay, well, let's go to the comic books too now because we're getting a little long on the show. But let's go to the comic. I already
Oh wow,
mentioned a
it's seven
couple of
already.
them that I thought that made some sense. So what about you? What comic books do you think? I think you had some handy.
Yeah. Well, obviously, because before the movie came out, we kept hearing about Ego and
Right.
Long Halloween, and I
Right.
didn't see much Ego. I don't know if you read Batman Ego, but
I I don't think I did. No, I know the storyline, but I didn't read it.
it was pretty much like an existential story about between Batman and as a it's kind of like Immortal Hulk. Where there's the Hulk and there's Bruce Banner,
Hmm.
but with this version, it's Batman, like the bat, literally a bat, and then and Bruce Wayne. But I think they pulled a lot of the movie more so on Jeff Johns' Earth One. Like
Hmm.
this is they got the bodyguard Alfred from this story because in this story um, Alfred fought in a war with Thomas Wayne. That's why, and in this story, Thomas Wayne was running for mayor.
Okay.
He's running for mayor to undo all the things that the mobs, you know, the mafia, have their clutches. He's trying to like take those away. So now
Which
his
which is the
life and
storyline
family.
here too. This part of the
Exactly,
storyline here. Yeah.
exactly. Since he's trying to undo all that, you know, he feels like he's threatening his life and his family. So let's hire my war buddy Alfred to watch us over. Which is in the movie, he felt like he failed them because they both, you know, were killed. Um, And also it's in this story where if I can, I should dog ear this, but I can't dog ear a comic book. You know what I mean? But anyway, there's a page in here where Batman actually punches Gordon.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's in here, and obviously the way Gary Frank drew Batman, he didn't draw the white eyes. He actually drew the eyes. So
Okay.
it's a little goofy, like so realistic. He took away all the cool. Actually, you can see it better on the cover. But Batman looks a little goofy because he wasn't like he was more grounded in this book. Also, speaking of the Riddler, when I was watching the trailer, it was kind of throwing me off because the Riddler actually looked like Hush. I was like,
Yes.
are they pulling a wool over us? Is this really Hush?
Right.
And then eventually they saw a picture. They showed a picture of Paul Dano out of the mask, and the way he looks like Jim Gordon Jr. Do you remember, like, because he has glass? Actually, I have one of the books that he's in, Black Mirror. Awesome Scott Snyder story, because I know you're a fan of Scott Snyder. I think this was his first Batman, but I have a picture of him here. Doesn't that look like Paul Dano?
It does.
Right? When they took him out of his mask.
Right.
So I was like, oh, this has got to be, this is not the Riddler. Matt Reeves is doing a number on us. But, well, it turns out that he actually, it was actually the Riddler. But he didn't call himself Edward Nygma, though. That was kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It was Norton or something like that.
He had two IDs.
You know, they were both aliases that you saw in the comic books, like Norton, and it was like an Irish one, the other one.
Yeah, I have to watch the movie again.
I can't remember what
I'm
the
sure
name
there's
was. But
I'm sure there's an Easter egg YouTube video out there that'll say what it.
But so they didn't use Nygma, which I guess is another alias of him. They picked two others that were not too obvious with respect to that.
So. Now, okay, bring out one more comic.
Sure.
All right. They kept mentioning this was year 2, and I got scared for the movie.
But it wasn't the comic book year 2.
Yeah, it's not. Have you read this book?
I did, yeah.
It's a terrible well,
yeah, it's not good.
It's not good. They had Batman like digging up the gun. He's holding the gun that killed his parents so that he can use it towards this guy that he can't beat.
Right.
You know, and then he teams up with Joe Chill, right?
Right.
Do you remember?
Yes,
I hope they're not really doing year 2.
Yeah, that wasn't good. Year 1 was good. I liked year 1.
Yeah, but this was the follow-up.
Yes.
But then Long Halloween takes place year 2. But that's year 2.
Right. Now, you know, I mentioned that you should watch Mask of the Phantasm because it's like one of the best Batman movies. But I have to say, I thought that the 2-part Long Halloween was well done. It was, you know, it was like
couldn't handle the animation.
Basically. Yeah,
I just hated the animation.
Those are 2 you got to watch. You got to watch.
No, I watched them and I've read the. It's different, but actually, speak of Phantasm, the bad guy in this book was actually inspired. That's what inspired, because there's a villain here called the Reaper. He had like sickles on his hands.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was an inspiration for the Phantasm. But the only cool thing about this book is that there's an issue drawn by Todd McFarlane. And if I can find it quickly, this is for Dave Bratton, by the way, because he's a big figure guy. Keep talking while I look for this picture.
Keep talking, okay.
Yeah, about comics.
We really like the Batman movie, and we got a few more things to say, and then we can wrap it up. But
can I just show this?
Go ahead.
Hey, Dave, does this look familiar to you, Dave? I know you're going to be watching this. It's.
Oh, there you go.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. There it is.
So I thought of Dave when I saw that year 2 picture.
Okay, a couple more things first. Now, so what about the future of this Batman and so forth? So we already know there's going to be HBO Max series, right, that are going to come out. But what do you think that the sequel is going to be about? And we can talk a little bit about the end of this movie because it may have something to do with the sequel. We had mentioned before, let me bring it up again. Barry Keoghan, I guess his last name is. So why
Barry,
don't-
sorry,
yeah,
Barry Keoghan.
Keown, thanks. So why don't you tell? Why don't we talk a little bit about the end of the movie? You know, where the Riddler has been caught. He's in Arkham, right? Um,
Hmm.
First of all, why was the Riddler trying to kill people? What was the point of him trying to kill Bruce?
Because he's tired of people making promises, because he was affected by a promise that Thomas Wayne made,
Right.
because he was supposed to preserve, because he was an orphan. Riddler was an orphan, and he was part of this uh, uh, the Wayne Riddler home for the orphans. But then, for some reason, throughout the corruption, the funding stopped, and and
And so he
the
blamed
I think the house
he
was
blamed Thomas
disbanded.
Wayne. You have to, but we don't want to give you the whole thing for the movie so you could see it. But he blamed Thomas Wayne basically for all the bad stuff that happened. You know,
Right, right,
although and because Thomas and Martha Wayne were dead, you know, and he was trying to kill off all the people that were, you know, lying and all that.
right.
He felt that he had to kill Bruce so he can kind
Yeah.
of get back at Thomas Wayne, I guess, with respect to that. I know
Not
that's
just
pretty
that.
iffy for everybody watching, but we want you to watch the movie so you can kind of see and develop what really happened there on its own.
But he
But
really
then,
had it for.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry,
No,
but
go
he
ahead.
really had it for Bruce because he was an orphan like him, but he's up on a pedestal that is
That's
the
right.
Wayne Manor. So
Right.
it's like you don't know what it's really like to be an orphan, like
Right.
I do. So
Yeah. So
sorry.
that it definitely added to it. So at
Yeah.
the end, all right, so the Riddler is caught. He's in Arkham, right? And we found out that Martha Wayne's maiden name was Arkham, and that the Waynes and the Arkhams, because this gets into the future potential movies, the Waynes and the Arkhams were the two founding families of Gotham City.
Right.
Okay. So when we get in there, and he talks to the Riddler, that's the Riddler starts talking about Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
He says, "Yeah, Bruce Wayne is this, Bruce Wayne," and Batman's there sweating because what's he thinking? Pretty fly.
He knows who I am.
He's thinking the Riddler knows who I am, and he's going to tell everybody, and that's going to be the end of everything,
Yeah.
right? And so, but at the end, he says, "We almost got him."
Yeah.
So Batman, when Batman sees that and he sees he's in the clear, he starts telling the Riddler, goes, "We weren't partners. What are you talking about? You're just a crazy wacko type of crazy." And then the Riddler goes crazy. No, that's not supposed to be like this. We're supposed to be
Yeah.
pals and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so then Batman leaves, and that person that we spoke about is in the next cell, right?
Hmm.
And he starts talking to the Riddler and basically trying to make friends with him. We won't get into the specifics, but he has a bit of a joke and a laugh at the end. So I think, what is he trying to tell us?
I wonder who
Maybe,
that could be.
maybe. I mean, it could be potentially the Joker, right? So at least we don't know, you know, but it sounded a little bit like it. Now, I did read that there was a deleted scene
Hmm.
where Batman, as he was going to the Riddler's cell, passes this person, Joker, this person's cell, and that they have a little bit of a tete-a-tete together, right? You know, so one
Right.
of the questions is, even though he may not really be the Joker yet, what the heck did he do that he had to go into the Arkham Asylum rather than a regular prison, you know? So he must be
Right.
down
Right.
that road a little bit.
Well,
Something,
do you
you know,
know?
right?
But you know why the scene was there, right? Or the purpose of the scene was, right. It
Well, you
was
tell
it
me.
was to it was to help. Batman needed help finding the Riddler, so he went to Arkham to ask for advice to someone like who thinks like him, and someone who he knows, who could help him out, kind of like Hannibal Lecter.
Right.
So that's why Matt Reeves wanted that scene there, but they had to take it out. So, I mean, he may not be the Joker, but Batman, he was insane enough for Batman to require his help, because you can't outthink crazy. You can't.
Mhm.
You have to think outside of the box to be like, you know. So that's why I think the scene was there. Now, why they took that scene out and not the latter scene, I don't know. But
Well,
it was Killer Croc.
Killer Croc, right?
Killer
Right,
Crockpot.
right. Would have been a very cool scene. Yeah, and they're probably going to show it at some point in time, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind of like
That's the
Titans.
4-hour
Yeah,
cut.
yeah. It's kind of like
4-hour cut.
Titans. That's right. With
Yeah,
Scarecrow,
sure.
yeah, and Nightwing. That's right. Exactly.
But I do like the scene in the end, though. Like I like that they included it because I know people are like, yeah, whatever. They could have, that could have been a post credit. But to me, like it's a symbol of how there's always something brewing in Gotham. Like you take out Riddler, someone's gonna take his place.
Yeah.
And someone's gonna be even better than the Riddler. So I think we'll get the Riddler that we all know with the bowler hat and the cane because of that interaction or being next to that guy.
Well, here's my thought. This is a trilogy, right? So here's my thought.
Hopefully, it's a trilogy.
Well, that's the idea, I think. Although there may be 2 or 3 years in between each one. So I think the next movie might be because that Rattlata.com or whatever it was, and the rest of that. I think that there's a chance that you may have the Riddler and the Joker come back.
Sure.
Maybe with somebody else, where they are going to team up against the Batman. That's a possibility.
Now, who would you like for that person to be?
Well,
that third person.
I kind of
Come
like
on, Joe.
I kind of like Poison Ivy, but I don't see how it fits in.
Okay.
Because there hasn't been a lot of that, and I think there's a lot of possibilities there.
Yeah.
And they could do it where it starts off like with Poison Ivy, and others kind of join in and that type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be Harley Quinn because we have a lot of her in the DCEU on the other Earth and stuff like that.
Right.
And in terms of that, I just think that they need a woman bad person because Catwoman is going to be back.
Sure.
There needs to be some tension there somewhere. So that's kind of my feeling with respect to that. And
can we say where she went?
Yeah, sure. She went to
Bloodhaven.
Yeah.
So like potential for a Robin, right? So.
Well, somebody says, "Oh, maybe Robin's going to show up there," so it's possible. But remember, Robin showed up in year 3 in the actual comic books.
Sure. Yeah.
So who knows? But then the other thing is, I think for the third one, I'd be flabbergasted if it's not the Court of Owls. I mean, all the stuff that you see in this story when you go to watch it, it all builds up, in my view, to the Arkhams and the Waynes and the others that basically were running this city.
Right.
I mean, if it doesn't happen to be the Court of Owls, I'll be really surprised. That's got to be the third one that kind of explodes that ends up the trilogy.
And remind me, because I haven't read Court of Owls in a long time, but wasn't one of the other main family was the Cobblepots?
I think so.
I think so, right? Because I think they were the third. And we have the Penguin, and Penguin's making his way up in the gang ladder or mafia ladder. So
yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff that'll support.
This bigger one's Bane. Well, that's it. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Why might it be Bane?
Yeah. Well, we saw some Batman using some venom. I'm not gonna say venom. Let's not describe how it came up, but yeah, he did.
But he did use something to kind of reinvigorate himself. So that's a possibility.
Yeah. That's a possibility. And who showed you that Legends of the Dark Knight storyline with Venom?
Yeah.
I told you about that storyline when Batman.
You did.
Yeah. So
that's possible as well. So that to me is what I think. You have any thoughts on that, Pretty Fly?
I think they got to have Mr. Freeze in there too.
Good point. Yeah.
Because what's a Talon's weakness?
Yeah.
You got to freeze them. That's the only way you got to take them out.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So
I wouldn't mind a Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, they should. I mean, not Arnold Mr. Freeze, obviously, but the animated series Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, the one where he's really trying to do good by his wife and stuff like that.
Yeah, Laura. Yeah,
he's kind of a sorry guy there with respect to that.
Yeah. He's talking about the comics, all right?
Yeah, I know. I know. Okay. All right. Now let's end it up with, and I'm gonna look for this other thing that I had if I could find it.
I wish I could see the chat. Ah, it's too bad.
Well,
But hi everyone in the chat.
let me see if I could find
Because
this.
I
Oh,
love
here.
the Gibbon gang, man. We're such a family, and
Yeah.
I would like to.
Okay,
interact
so
with-
we have. Just give me a second. I'm going to try to pull up something. I'm sorry I have to rebuild this, but that was part. That was part of the problem. We got to start it so late. Okay. So here we have. You can hardly see him, but there's
past
Pattinson.
him.
Yeah, Creature of the Night, right?
Right.
So the question is, where does he stand in the Batman pantheon, right? And
Oof.
here are the other Batmen that appeared. So you have West, Keaton, Kilmer, Clooney, Bale, and Affleck. I'll tell you right now, I'm putting Clooney down at the bottom.
Hi, Mr. Freeze. I'm Batman. Just head shaking.
In my view, although the Kilmer movie wasn't awful,
I loved it. I love Forever.
Yeah, I don't think he was a good Batman, though.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. To me, it didn't ring true with me. You know.
He did.
I think I'd put West above him.
Okay.
And for me, it's like West or Affleck. I'm not, I'm not sure which one. They're very different.
Right.
You know,
I was just gonna say Kilmer brought out the smart Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he was facing the Riddler in that movie, but like we got to see his bad IQ.
Yeah. Then getting into the top three, I think Keaton and Bale. Bale's his trilogy was so good. Keaton didn't get a chance to do a trilogy because of what happened.
Sure.
So that might have hurt him a little bit. But I for me, when I went there in 1989 with my best friend, my wife and his wife, and we saw it down in the Village, we were like flying high, boy, watching that. And although Bale's trilogy was really good, at least, and obviously that second movie, with Keith Ledger was just epic. I mean, I'm gonna put Keaton ahead of Bale.
Keaton ahead of Bale. Okay.
Only because of what it meant to me.
Sure.
So where does Pattinson fit in? I think he fits in. We have to wait another movie, maybe, but he's either right ahead of Bale, in my view, or right behind Bale at this point. But with the next movie, if it's as good as this one, he could be pushing himself up to the top.
Sure.
That's my my assessment of the Batman.
I think we skipped on Pattinson when we were talking about the actors.
Well, that's why I was waiting for this. So I was waiting for this part.
Smart. Yeah, smart one, Joe. But one of my favorite things about what Pattinson does as the Batman was how he emotes with his eyes. Like he would reply with an eye, like I'm not gonna try and do it, but if you watch the movie again, like all his responses were through those eyes, like they were so expressive. There were even points where he'd cheat his head a certain way and look that way, and all you see are the whites of his eyes.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was well done.
So it was like, I'm sure Matt Reeves had something to do with that, but when I look at Pattinson, I'm looking at the comics. That's why to me he's got to be up there. Yeah. But I don't think he's above Affleck in my book, because Affleck is still my favorite Batman. But the coolest thing is that I can see Pattinson's Batman becoming Batfleck.
Really?
I see that strong connection between how both of them portrayed Batman. Because there was a scene in Batman vs Superman, because I've seen it 502 times. He was looking at the Batsuit with just like this somber, look that he's just like, I see Pattinson resemble that look. It's just that with Affleck, he had a better Bruce Wayne, in my opinion.
Well, Pattinson had hardly any Bruce Wayne, so
right, and that's when Andy Serkis's Alfred comes in and tell him, you got to be more than just Batman. You got to have a Bruce Wayne.
Right.
So I think that's what the sequel is going to be about. But until then, I think Batfleck's still my number one. Who would I put below? Adam West, man. I think I like Adam West over Keaton Kilmer and especially Clooney. Bale, again, he just tried overplaying it with a voice. I couldn't stomach it, and the only reason why I like Dark Knight is because of Heath Ledger, not really so much because of Bale. And I don't like, and this is not Bale's fault, but at the end he gave up being Batman so he can have espresso with Catwoman in Italy. And let me just give my keys to this little hopeful detective named Robin.
Espresso is worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, it's like, how much we're just Batman for the chicks, you know?
Well, I have to say that kind of surprised me, that ending as well. But I think they needed to do that because they wanted that Robin character to kind of take it on. And I don't know if they were thinking they were going to do some more movies or not, but that was kind of the way they ended the thing. Well, it's I'm just kind of interested that you had indicated that Affleck was your best, your highest rated Batman. I mean, I liked him in the movies. I thought that I thought he was really great in the Snyder Cut.
I liked him better in Batman vs Superman, but
there were scenes in that. See, I think that, and I'll end up my comments with this. Batman with other real superheroes, he's really got to use his intellect a lot. And in Batman v Superman, he was just so pissed off wanting to kill Superman for half the movie until the Martha thing happened. Then after that, when Doomsday comes out, what did he do? He would just like swing back and forth to miss Doomsday's punches and whatever else. I mean, there was not much there for him. So he was kind of this vindictive guy trying to get back at Superman for destroying his building, killing people and all that, with his fight with Zod. And I'm not sure if he had retired before that, because it looked like he either had retired or wasn't being the Batman as often anymore. And he just put this together as a revenge type of thing. And I thought that was really unlike Batman. That wasn't really Batman. Might have been Bruce Wayne being pissed off, but
that was the point, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was the point, because in the opening he fell in that pit. There was a scene where he was in the Wayne funeral and Batman was running, and then he fell down the pit, and then he was like, I know it's kind of lame because he was just flying up, and while the bats were lifting him back up to the light,
lifting him up,
And then as he got older, like I said, this is why I think Pattinson and Batfleck are connected, because he does become Batman, but then 20 years of doing his crusade, it's not helping Gotham. So he becomes like the more Punisher Batman until, he fell into that pit again of being angry, and now he's seeing a threat from this alien. So he's in that dark pit until Superman brought him back up again from like the bats did in the beginning through that Martha scene. And then we had that epic warehouse scene.
Yeah. See, I just think that Batman, even in some respects in the comic books, if it's in even in the Justice League, in the Justice League, the first Justice League cartoon series, it was played a little bit differently. But if you take a look at the Batman animated movies and the pure Batman movies, I just think he's better alone.
Oh yeah,
I think he's better alone. And
I never liked him with the Justice League.
And Affleck didn't get that opportunity.
Right.
So I think that's why he's not as high on my list. I think because I didn't see it.
I totally get that.
Yeah. Although I just read today and I posted on Instagram the fact that he's not supposedly he's not going to die in the Flash movie, and he said he'd be willing to come back, to do some Batman scenes and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting.
And Affleck was he was engaged in a Batman project where
Yeah.
it's just a solo Batman film with Deathstroke as the antagonist until what happened with the Snyder cut and
Yeah.
and why bother studios? I call them why bother. I don't call them Warner Brothers. I call them why bother
Why bother,
studios.
WB? Well, hopefully the Discovery Plus people taking over the whole thing will see
Yeah,
the errors and see that the WB people were like brain dead most of this time,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and we'll come up with something. And I'm not saying it should be the Marvel movies. I think that's different. I don't have any
Yeah.
problem with the DC movies being darker, you know. I think it's more realistic. I think the Marvel movies are more, although they're live, in many ways they're more cartoony in my view, you know.
I would not
Whereas,
take kids to see this Batman movie. Let's
yeah,
just say that.
that's right. Yeah. So, okay, Pretty Fly. Any last words or things on that?
I can go till 9 if you want talking about this movie.
Well, we'll go
But
ahead.
yeah, I'm surprised. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, I've only seen this movie once, and I saw it. I picked the grittiest theater to see this because it harkens back to the old 70s vibe. So I didn't go to IMAX, but maybe in my second viewing it'll be IMAX because, like I said, I love the music, I love the sound,
Oh, it's great in
and
IMAX. Yeah.
yeah, I have a great theater in Burbank with great Dolby surround sound and laser projection. So I will see it um, second time in a better theater.
Mhm.
But with that said, it's a great movie. It's different. It's different.
Yeah.
Uh, but
So let's end it up like this. People, there's only a few people left in here, I think, 4 people. But let me just say this. You notice the title of this, and let me see if I could bring it back up again real quick. All right. It's Forgotten Potatoes, right?
right,
Okay. So it's Forgotten Potatoes. So Pretty Fly saying, what does that mean? It's a play on rotten tomatoes. I think potatoes,
right.
I like potatoes better than tomatoes. Okay. So it's Forgotten Potatoes. So if you were to give this some sort of a rating, but let's not do it on 100, you know. So let's just do it on like, 5 stars and stuff like that. What kind of rating, how many potatoes would you give it?
Ah, oh man, because I don't think if I gave it a 5 because I'm a Batman fan, it doesn't really help
No, you got to step back.
non-Batman fans. I
You
got to
got to
step
step
back
back.
from that. Uh, I would say 4 out of 5 because the story is there, and yes, it may be too long for a lot of people, and some, like I said, being a Batman fan is what made this movie feel like 2 hours more than 3 hours.
Mhm.
But if you're not, um, yeah, I had when I went to see the movie, I had rowdy kids behind me because I think they were just bored because there's not a lot of action, and it's not a type of superhero movie that they were used to. I mean,
Right.
they got quiet during the car scene and the last part of the movie, but up till then they were just they couldn't get their attention because it's not if you're used to the Marvel movies or you're used to the Nolan movies, then you're gonna find this movie kind of slow at some parts. So I would
Right.
give it a 4 out of 5 for that. But as a Batman fan and as the guy that's geeky about the music, the way it was shot, it can be higher. But just to be helpful for people that if we're the deciding factor whether they should see this or not, I would say 4 out of 5. It's not your usual
Well, let me
action-packed
let me stop you
superhero
for a
movie.
second. Alan already based it on 10, so I guess we have to base it on 10 now. So are you going to make it an 8 or a 9?
Ugh, I would say 9. It is a good
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah.
Sprinkle. It is a good movie, like Seven, and
Yeah.
it's suspenseful with just a sprinkling of Batman on it. But yeah, I think there needs to be more fun factor for that to be a 10 for most people.
Yeah, I'd say probably 8.5 or 9 myself for some of the same reasons you had mentioned. I just think if people looking for a superhero movie, this isn't the movie to go watch and see. Now, if you're a Batman fan, oh, absolutely, you know.
Right.
But if you're looking to like Captain America, Civil War, or First Avenger, or Iron Man 1 or 2 or 3, it's not that type of movie. It just isn't,
Right.
you know. And so I think, and I do think that I know it was 3 hours long. Okay. Um, but I do think that there's more development there. And maybe I'm being too critical about it. But I think even if it was 3.5 hours, I think it would be okay. It might even be a better
Sure.
movie, frankly.
Right.
And
Right.
as you
No, there you
see,
go.
Rotten Tomatoes has it,
There you go.
85% on the, I can't even see this because I'm blocked here. And
Yeah, 85.
85% from the critics and 89%
Audience a
from
little
the,
higher.
yeah. So that's about like an 8.5 and almost a 9. So we're kind of
Right.
in the, we're kind of in the
Yeah.
same area as
Because if
they
you're
are.
looking for escapism for everyday thing, this is not your escape.
Mhm.
I wouldn't use this to escape from. You know, I'd probably see Spider-Man again for a little laughs here and there.
Right.
You know?
Bigger's going with a 9.3.
Well, but Chris is such a bad DC fan, so he's coming from where I'm coming from. But like I said, we're gatekeepers of ranking this thing. So
Right.
yeah, I'll take it more. I'll take it more seriously, the responsibility of rating this thing as a moviegoer, more so than a Batman fan.
So let me thank everybody for watching. So the Forgotten Potatoes is something that Pretty Fly and I will do from time to time. If there's a movie coming out that we're going to see, or maybe some of the TV shows or something like that, we'll get together and kind of talk it up a little bit. We'll try to do it where we'll give you some information, but not necessarily give away the whole store. So that way, if you haven't seen it, you can go see it. And if you have, you can make some nice comments here, as some of the people have done throughout.
We'll throw in a Marvel movie here and there. Don't worry.
Yeah.
That's going to be all DC Batman movies.
Yeah, crispy fries. Yeah, it's definitely worth going to see. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Especially if you say to yourself, it's not a typical superhero movie. It's a criminal horror slasher type of movie that Batman's involved in. That's kind of the way I would put it.
And it's a palate cleanser from that awesome Spider-Man movie. Let's have something different. So for the next, because Doctor Strange is up next, so it's gonna be pretty similar. So let's have a little palate cleanser in between those two movies.
You're right. I mean, and the Spider-Man movie was just terrific. So yeah, it's a good detective movie. You're right. All right, guys. So thanks a lot for hanging out with us for a bit. We enjoyed talking it up, and he's got to go. It's the creature of the night, but it's 10:38 here on the East Coast. It's still too early for you guys out there on the West Coast to go out.
It's still daylight.
It's still daylight. All right. So we'll see you soon. Let me go out there and take care.